What's up, y'all? Welcome back to the channel. I'm still here in my Airbnb up in the mountains. This is my little country cottage kitchen, complete with yellow tile and skirted sinks and whatnot. It's cozy. I want to do a video on Cody Johnson.
What do you wash a beach with? What? Tide.
Not because he has some song going viral on TikTok like Diamond in My Pocket. Not because he's dropping a new cologne and I'm going to do a fragrance review. No, I just want to do a check-in on his career and talk specifically about this album, Human, the double album.
You can tell your old man you'll do some largemouth fish in another town.
He just dropped a Christmas album. He just announced that he's going to be on the road with Luke Combs. Let's just do a little dip in. See how Cody is doing. If you're not familiar with Cody Johnson, at this point, you're actively avoiding him because he has really made a name for himself over the last decade as this former rodeo rider turned kind of sturdy, tough guy, country star out of the Texas world. A few years ago, he signed this big distribution deal with Warner Music Nashville, and they pushed a song of his called On My Way to You, which became a minor mainstream hit. And ever since, he's been trying to kind of chase after that big, mainstream appealing star, and it looks like the stars are finally aligning, and that's going to happen for him. Cody Johnson's sound is sort of straight down the middle country.
Now I'm just a hillbilly gypsy, and I ain't one for settling down.
The word sturdy really does always come to mind because it's crowd pleasing. You're gonna get some fiddle, you're gonna get some steel, you're gonna get some acoustic guitar, you're gonna get that really twangy, a little bit of a snarl in his voice, and he can really belt too. He's a great vocalist, he delivers great songs. In some ways, he feels a lot like a George Strait to me in that his music isn't always written by him. A lot of times it's a touch impersonal or he's doing some storytelling, but it's very crowd pleasing at the same time. And he's also known as a guy who really speaks his mind, whether that is about saying that, you know, country music isn't country when he's at a concert talking about Old Town Road.
If that's country music, I will line up after this show and I will kiss every last single one of y'all's ass.
Or telling the truth about the machinations of country radio.
What has happened is rock and hip hop PDs have been shoved from that world into the country music world.
Which is a subject I made a whole video on a few months ago, so check that out if you're curious. As I learned when I covered his album Ain't Nothing To It a couple years ago, Kojo Nation extends far and wide. This guy has a huge fan base. He's like a sleeping giant. In some ways, he reminds me almost of, I don't know, what's a show like Law and Order or CSI, where you blink and you're like, you've had 15 seasons or 20 seasons or whatever. That's how I felt when I discovered Cody Johnson, and I was like, this guy has like 10 albums and he sells out the Houston Rodeo, and I hadn't heard of him. It's an impressive fan base, and they're very passionate too, as I can tell from the comments constantly. Grady, when are you gonna cover Human? When are you gonna cover Human? Well, folks, today I'm gonna cover Human.
If you got a chance, take it while you
Now, first thing I'll say is that I am an equal opportunity offender when it comes to the subject of double albums. I didn't need a double album from Morgan Wallen. I didn't need a double album from Thomas Rhett, although he says that, you know, side B is going to come out later. I didn't need a triple album from Eric Church. I just feel like less is more, and when you can have a focused project, it just hits you way harder. But whatever, it's 18 songs, it's just over an hour long, which does make for a long listen, and these are songs about the human experience. There's a lot of love songs on here. There's a lot of intergenerational reflections on what it is to grow up. There's him thinking about a father on songs like God Bless the Boy. There's songs about making the most of life, like Til You Can't, and there's songs about regretting having not made the most of life, like I Always Wanted To. There's some breakup songs like Longer Than She Did. There's a lot of just kind of good husband songs like Treasure or Stronger or Known for Loving You. I mean, there's just a lot on this album. I don't think it necessarily tells the most cohesive story, but when you name an album something as broad as Human, I guess everything falls under the category of part of human life. This album to me is loaded with standout moments. There's like 5 or 6 or 7 songs on here where I'm like, gosh, that is such a damn good song. It sounds awesome, his voice sounds awesome, and yet as a collection, it does feel a little bit like less than the sum of its parts. It kind of feels boring in a way, just because it's so like solid and inoffensive. That feels like such a lame criticism to say, like, oh, it was just kind of good and there, but that's how I felt. And I think a lot of that would have been reduced by just a little bit of editing, just cutting it down, focusing the story a little bit more, and you'd have a more of a punch of an album. But that said, the moments that do punch Boy, do they. And I want to talk about a few of the standout tracks here. First and foremost, the song that kind of stopped me in my tracks was one called I Always Wanted To, which is a sad, sad song. Maybe the saddest song I've heard all year.
They took away my keys.
This was written by Tom Douglas and Alan Shamblin, two of the guys involved in The House That Built Me, as well as someone I'm not familiar with named Jordan Shellhart. And this song is about an old man whose sheets are having to be changed for him, and he's 95 years old, and he's kind of looking back on his life and thinking about all the things he wished he'd done. You know, he always wanted a woodshed, he always wanted a son, and he didn't get these things, but he always wanted them.
I never did all I wanted to do.
It is devastating. Like, you kind of think, okay, we're getting this really sad picture and we're going to get a reprieve in the final verse, and we're going to find out, like, he does have some of that stuff, or he has Alzheimer's, but no. You just find out that his wife died when she was 25 and he was 27, and his life didn't go the way he thought it would go. And he talks about how memories we never made still fade. Woo! That is incredibly sad. The idea that you didn't even have an experience, and even the thought of having that experience is what's fading. It's like a double sad. It's like, not only did you lose this thing, you never even got it, and you lost your pretend memory of it. Whew. To me, that is a showstopper, legendary level sad song. It's one of the saddest songs I've ever heard. It's an incredible achievement. I'm glad he cut it. He's got such an ear for great songs. I felt the same way about the very next track on the record, which is called I Don't Know a Thing About Love.
'Cause I don't know a thing about love.
Almost positive this is like a Conway Twitty cover.
I don't know a thing about love.
I think it's written by Harlan Howard, and this song just jams. To me, it reminded me of, what's the Eric Church song from Soul? Where I Want to Be. It reminds me of Where I Want to Be, in that it just grooves.
He said, son, I can move the oceans when I take the notion.
And you get the growl in his voice, you get a really powerful vocal, and it's just fun. Love it. Those are right beside each other on the album. They couldn't be more different, and they're definitely my favorite two tracks. If there's gonna be one that does become a classic though from this record, I think it's gonna be Til You Can't, which is the single that they're currently working.
There's a box of greasy parts sitting in the trunk of that 65.
It seems to have all the momentum and is going to become Cody's first real huge mainstream hit. And this is a song kind of like Live Like You Were Dying by Tim McGraw that's about making the most of your life. You know, if you've got a chance, you need to go take it. And you've got all these images interspersed through the songs of things that you should just do right now, because you're not always going to be able to do them. You're not always going to have that grandparent in your life or the opportunity to take that chance. And so live as much as you can until you can't. The percussion in this song really drives it and makes it exciting.
You got a dream, chase it, 'cause a dream won't change.
And then so do Cody's soaring vocals. You know, it is a very climactic song. I think the dynamics in it are excellent, and they do get you kind of hyped and inspired and wanting to make the most of your life. Of the more sort of Western feeling cowboy songs on here, you've got one very obvious one called Cowboy Scale from 1 to 10.
If there ever was a way to rate a man on a cowboy scale of 1 to 10.
That's got everyone from, let me see if I can remember, Ned Ledoux, Dale Brisby, Red Steagle, and Corb Lund, who I learned about in my Canada video.
Well, it's time to switch to whiskey. We've been drinking beer all night.
If you are a fan of the rodeo scene, it's just this like little love letter to the cowboys that play in that scene and are making country music together, and it's kind of like a one big happy family, silly little event song. To me, the Willie Nelson collaboration, Sad Songs and Waltzes, also feels like quite an event.
Sad songs and waltzes aren't selling this year.
Especially from a guy that was out of the outlaw movement back in the 70s and is just an icon of country music. That song is just kind of about the sad boy vibes of country music that we all love. It's always cool to hear Willie Nelson. We don't know how much longer we're going to have him with us, and so to hear him with Cody Johnson, it's nice. And then of the kind of good husband songs, as I called them, I really love Known for Loving You, and I love the fiddle on it. There's a lot of good fiddle on this record. But to me, the standout is the song called Treasure. It almost reminds me of a Luke Combs song like Forever After All, in that it is incredibly sweet and adoring. In general, Luke Combs and even Aaron Watson a bit are probably good dupes almost for an album like this, and that they're making pretty straight down the middle, very appealing music. But also maybe like the last Luke Combs record, I do think there's some filler here. Like, I don't think that Driveway or Made a Home or Let's Build a Fire or like, I just think there's a lot of songs on here that kind of pad it out, but they are covering similar subject matter, or they're just not the most interesting lyrics in the world. I think I'd probably give the album like a 7 or a 7.5 out of 10, much like his last one. I really love some of the songs, but as a project, I just really like it. I think it's good, but it doesn't feel like it's costing him anything. You know, like, I need that level of confessionalness from my artist when an album really transcends, and I feel like I love it. And to me, Cody is definitely being an affable entertainer, presenting a lot of shades of life, but is it costing him something? I don't know. And that just tends to be the stuff I like the most. Luke Combs is actually a good person to bring up, though, because he just announced a stadium tour that has everybody talking. It's only got 3 dates on it so far, but it's the lineup that everyone is intrigued by. I mean, first off, Luke Combs is now playing stadiums. That is an incredibly fast ascent to the largest type of concert you can have, but it's going to have Cody Johnson on it, as well as Zach Bryan and Morgan Wade. And if that's not a cool lineup, I don't know what is, because this covers all these different little niches of the industry. I mean, Luke is going to be like your straight down the middle country guy from Nashville. Cody is kind of filling a similar role, but he's like this king out of the Texas scene. Zach Bryan is like this indie, sad boy, poet, songwriter guy, and then Morgan Wade has got this kind of alt-rock vibe about her. It's just like a really different, cool lineup that shows a lot of the different corners of country music. And I've kind of had this theory going for a little while now that a tandem mainstream is going to form alongside the Nashville mainstream, in which there's going to be almost a Texas-based mainstream, and I've noticed a lot of Nashville artists starting to tour with people out there. You know, you've got Hardy going on the road with Co Wetzel. You've got Drew Parker going on the road with Colby Cooper. Now you've got Luke Combs going on the road with Cody Johnson, and I think artists that are doing this are smart, because it feels to me like Nashville country is going to continue to try to appeal more to an urbane, poppy audience, and a lot of the more rock-influenced country is going to tend to go more towards Texas. And so I just think this is intriguing. It's a thing I am keeping my eye on, and when I saw it, I was like, oh snap, here is another little person building that bridge between Nashville and Texas, and I think there's a lot of money to be made there. And then I saw that Cody Johnson just dropped a Christmas album. I haven't listened to it yet, but you know, I will. Christmas albums, I don't feel that kind of rush to go listen to. I kind of like sad Christmas music. Give me Christmas Makes Me Cry by Casey Musgraves all day.
Over Christmas, it always makes me cry.
That's kind of my vibe. Or Blue Christmas, or A Snowflake Fell and It Felt Like a Kiss by Las Vegas. I kind of like some sad country songs at Christmas time, but hopefully he has a couple. Maybe I'll listen to it on the way back down from the mountains, but yeah, that's just kind of what Cody Johnson is up to. I know people love him. I'd love to know your thoughts on Human, the double album. So let me know in the comments. There's a bunch more stuff coming soon. I know there's still a bunch of albums I haven't talked about. We'll get to them, or we won't. We'll see. Love y'all. Bye.